Good evening, special Friday night edition of Stoppage Time FC. Or is it Friday afternoon? It's technically Friday afternoon. Stoppage Time Football Club is a Facebook group. Stoppage Time Football Club is the YouTube. You should be a member of both, subscribe to both. World Cup final, our first World Cup as a group. And I believe we got the best possible matchup. Shout out Diego, who maybe I feel like if Argentina wins, there will be a Diego sighting in some form very soon. Shout out, man, Zach. Joe, first of all, before we get into the match, there was a lot of misgivings about this World Cup leading into for a lot of very legitimate reasons. Now that we're at the final, how have you felt about the tournament as a whole?
I think it's been a very fun and entertaining tournament. Sometimes the quality wasn't always that good, but that's kind of to be expected. If you're coming into a World Cup expecting to see quality passing from teams and patterns of play and things like that, international football is not for you. They don't have enough time to really work on those kind of things. So you're not going to see the quality of a Man City, of a PSG when they're in full flow, of Liverpool, of Bayern Munich. But I think overall, the excitement in the stadiums, on the field, you could feel the passion from the players. The energy was high. We had a lot of drama early on, and I felt like it was considering everything that happened beforehand, it went well, and I enjoyed getting to watch so much soccer throughout the past month or so during the day, popping on the Fubo TV during work and having soccer on all day was great. The group stage was a blast, having games on even at 5 o'clock in the morning through 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We got soccer all day, so I think it was a fun and entertaining tournament. And the final for sure is a heavyweight matchup, and one you kind of hope for as a neutral, to see two massive clubs who have both won the World Cup before. Both are looking to earn their third star on their badge, on their crest. Plenty of storylines that we'll get into, but I think it was a pretty good and overall fairly successful World Cup this year.
I think it was too. I'm still not a fan of mid-season. I think some of the pre-tournament injuries definitely, not say took away, but it was like, But the group stage, I thought, for me, I'm not a World Cup expert, but you will be hard-pressed to find a more exciting group stage than we had. With the few exceptions, every match meant something, high drama, high stakes. But I think it's like any other playoff and tournament, right? It's all cool. Saudi Arabia beats Argentina early. Oh, wow. It's all cool when, South Korea upsets a team. But when you get to the final, when you get to playing for the whole thing, yes, if those teams earn their way there, great. But you're rooting for the big matchup. It's like the NCAA tournament. It's all cool until you see Butler and BCU playing in the Final Four. Then it's like, yeah, this wasn't that hot.
Yeah, and then the broadcasters and everything, you can tell quickly that everybody's hyped up about the upset early on, but when you have that kind of matchup in the final, the viewership is just not going to be what it would be if you had your blue blood programs, if you had your Carolinas, your Kentuckys, your Kansases, things like that, and in the parallel to basketball. So it's just you as for FIFA, this is what they were hoping for. They wanted Messi in the final. They wanted to see France. They wanted to see big name players, superstar, world class players in the final to wrap up their tournament. And in their eyes, everything was a raging success, and it was all happy and go lucky, no matter what other stories were going on that they don't want to necessarily talk about. But if you listen to Gianni, this is just raging success and the best World Cup that there ever was, and all that stuff, regardless of things that happened off of the field. Let's just brush that under the rug,
Now, let's talk about the matchup. I think you're right. I think this is the classic case of the best player in the tournament versus the best team in the tournament. France, I believe, is a better team than Argentina 1 through 26. But that one that Argentina has, even at 35, is, I think now, without question, the greatest player of all time. And he's had a hell of a tournament. Not just basic goals, basic assists, but he's done everything for Argentina.
He's been absolutely spectacular. He's got 5 goals and 3 assists. He's tied for Mbappe for the Golden Boot race, and he's up there in the assist category as well. I think I saw Ronaldo has 10 total goal contributions in his World Cup career, and in this one World Cup, Messi has 8 by himself in 6 games. So he's just been on a mission. You could just tell when he's on the field. We're seeing a different side of Messi. We kind of talked about it a little bit with Diego last time about the attitude and the hunger and the
aggressive.
Yeah, exactly. You don't usually say that with Barcelona, and you certainly haven't seen that when he's been at PSG with the fire and the, like you said, the aggressiveness out of him. He's just on a different level right now.
So you talk about the narratives, and let's just kind of shoot through the narratives quick. You talk to Joe, as Joe mentioned, both teams looking for a 3rd World Cup, which I believe would put them 2nd place. I think Brazil has 4. But definitely, I think a 3rd World Cup puts you at least tied for 2nd or 2nd place. I think for France, there's a couple narratives. France wins a 3rd World Cup. They would have 3 World Cups and a European title in the last 25 years. Arguably, they become the best football nation in the last 20 in the modern era, with the amount they've won.
And they've been in numerous finals too. This isn't like new territory either. They've been to several World Cup finals. They just haven't won them as well. So that's no joke. Brazil has 5. Germany and Italy have 4. So whoever wins this matchup will move into sole possession of pretty much 3rd place on the all-time list.
You have for Mbappe at 23 years old, could be the leading scorer on back-to-back World Cup champions at 23. No one has repeated in this tournament in 60 years. So you have your first back-to-back champion in 60 years. And shout out to our man, Jimmy Pujols. We see you. For Didier Deschamps, for all of the angst, the management style, a back-to-back World Cup champion as a manager makes him an elite manager in this competition. It makes him an elite manager in football, period. So I think for France, yes, winning the World Cup individually is great, but there's so much that's in play for France, the nation, Mbappe, the player, and Deschamps as a manager.
Yeah, and Deschamps has not a lot of fans in the French footballing community. A lot of people were calling for him to be gone and didn't want him, and were hoping that, they wanted France to win, obviously, but if they went out, they wouldn't be too disappointed, because that would probably mean the end of Deschamps' tenure as manager. So you have that piece. You got 2 teammates going up against each other, and Mbappe and Messi, part of their monster 3-headed attack over in PSG. And who owns PSG but Qatari royalty? So this is a dream final for the people over in France and the people who run their biggest club in PSG, because their two guys are going head to head, matching up with one another. So it's fascinating to see what's going to happen on Sunday morning at 10 a.m.
For Argentina, they could become the first South American team to win the World Cup in 20 years. You know, a long, proud footballing nation that hasn't won a World Cup in 32 years. Obviously, it's for Messi. This is the final sentence on a GOAT career. This finishes everything. He wins the World Cup. He's now won the World Cup. He's won Copa America, numerous Champions Leagues, numerous La Ligas.
Ballon d'Or out the wazoo.
Ballon d'Or out the wazoo. He becomes now, obviously the GOAT conversation is subjective, but he will literally, it will be as inarguable as anything we have in sports.
He will have checked every box that you could possibly have when you're discussing who you put at the top of your list. He will have checked off every single box possible to put himself and cement himself up there. So that obviously is the headliner for me is, does Messi finish off his international career? Because he already came out and said that this is going to be his last international football match. So we'll see if he's finishing it off with a trophy raise or if he's getting a silver medal.
I think it also be interesting too for Messi too, especially with how well he's playing, right? Like you look at Ronaldo, and this is ending very ugly, right? No European clubs want him. So either he's looking at I'm out of the game, maybe a massive pay raise for maybe the Saudi Arabia deal gets laid. Basically, it's going to be for a career as great as his, it's going to be an ugly ending. For Messi, Joe, does this reopen the door? There was talk about, before the tournament, Messi might come to Inter Miami. As well as he's playing, does this open the door for if you are? Now, we know they have funny money. But if you are Barcelona, do you revisit Messi?
I think you have to.
Or gasp, shock, and horror for the rest of us. We know Joe's man Guardiola has signed the extension through, I think, 2026. If you're Pep, if he's playing this well, which means he's not ready for the MLS retirement home or the Middle East retirement home, and we know there's only few clubs who can afford him. If you're a Man City, do you say, you know what?
I think if you're Messi, you start looking at, I'm not going to the U.S. quite yet. I still have at least another year or two in my legs to play at a fairly high level and to compete for trophies, because this isn't just like out of the blue. He's just starting to play great for Argentina. He's been in amazing form for PSG all year long, which was a change up, because last year he didn't look like this. He obviously taking such a drastic change of scenery and upsetting his usual routine, being in Barcelona for all those years, takes a toll on a person, and you never really tell how quickly people will assimilate into a new situation like that. So clearly that took a little bit of some adjustment for him, but now he's back in not prime Messi, because prime Messi is a whole different animal, but he's back playing in the Ballon d'Or conversation form at this point. So I think you have to look at, do I want to finish up one more season or 2 seasons, go back home in Barcelona? Do I want to go play one more time for Peps, because I had some of my best years playing with him and under him? So I think that door is now closing on the MLS and going to play for Beckham, and reopening to some of the big clubs back in in Europe. If he decides he even wants to leave Paris, he might be comfortable now. So
yeah, I think his options have opened up because, like you said, last year he was okay, which for him is bad.
mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
But the way he's playing now, you're like, man, maybe, you know, I'm thinking if you are a club, especially if you're one of those clubs, right, who thinks like he would probably never play for Madrid.
No.
Never play for Madrid. But if you are a club like Barcelona, you ain't got the money, so we'll take you out. But if you are like Bayern Munich, if you are Man City, you have to really strong. Or if you're PSG, I think something about PSG. If you're PSG and you say we want to keep him, we want him to stay, do you say maybe we would be better? We flog Neymar off, and you maybe put the next young talent around Messi, because you have Mbappe on one side, you have young talent, whoever. It's like, hey, we'll ride the Messi thing, because I feel like the Neymar thing has just not gone the way they thought it was going to
Right.
go. So I think bigger picture, I think it's options. So let's get into the game itself. So I picked France to win the tournament when it started. And they have looked to me shakier than Argentina. I think Argentina has France. I just said the best team versus the best player. So this is going to kind of fly in the face of that. I still think France is a better team than Argentina, but I think Argentina has played better, if that makes any sense in this tournament, Joe. When you look at the matchup itself, what do you see?
I had Argentina at the beginning of the tournament winning. I did not have France getting to the final, but I did have Argentina in the final and winning the whole thing. For me, I think you're right with France being more talented from top to bottom. They're deeper. They have a stronger bench. And and they've shown that because they've had almost a full starting 11 go out with injuries before the World Cup even started. They're missing a lot of their top tier talent, and they're still here in the final. That's a testament to how good their depth is and how strong of a talent base that they have coming through France. But I like the way that Argentina is playing. I feel like they're the more together squad. They're a little grittier. France, to me, the past two rounds did not look particularly strong. England outplayed them. They're lucky that Harry Kane missed that penalty because that sapped all the momentum from England. He ties that up. Who knows what happens going into extra time and possibly PKs. And I think that Morocco also played a better game, even though they lost 2-0 to France. I liked what Morocco was doing more than France. They looked more dangerous. So I think coming into this, Argentina has the momentum, and Messi is just on a different level. We'll see what the tactics are for France. A lot of people are expecting to kind of sit back and kind of counterattack and absorb a little bit of pressure, let Argentina kind of have the ball in the midfield and play it around with their center backs, and then, press them as they come into their zone and look for those counters to capitalize on their speed. Griezmann, Dembele, and Mbappe definitely have the speed out wide and through the middle to cause the Argentinian center backs and fullbacks some problems, because they're not the most pacey guys. Otamendi's been great, but he's not a guy who you want in a foot race. They don't have somebody like Kyle Walker that, like with England, that could keep up with Mbappe and kind of just take him one-on-one with speed and pace and strength and kind of negate that aspect of Mbappe's game. So it's going to be a real interesting to see how these two teams line up, but I really like how Argentina is playing at this point. I think they're more comfortable, and it really comes down to I was going to ask you, and we can get to these just kind of X factors, because we know Mbappe, we know Messi are going to do their thing. They're going to be up there. We know what to expect from our superstars, but it really comes down to which team's X factor can raise their level of play. And for Argentina so far, it's been Julian Alvarez. He's been the second scorer, the second guy who's up there with Messi, creating making runs and getting in the right places for Messi to finish off some goals here. So France has, I think, more attacking talent, a little more creativity. Argentina has the best player, like you said. So we'll see.
I think for France, I think there's two. You talk about the other X factors. France,
who needs to have a good game for them to do well.
So for France to have a good game, we're going to see France's defense is prone to poor tackles in dangerous areas.
Yep, we saw that. We saw that in the last two matchups for sure.
And if you commit too many of those, and you give Messi a free kick in a dangerous area, or you give him a penalty, something. France's defense has got to stay composed, and that's easier said than done against the greatest player in the world, because when he gets the ball and he's kind of gets coming at you, it's tough. The second guy who is the factor, and he's the guy to me who's actually, now for our fans out there, there's the golden boot and there's the golden ball. The golden boot goes to the top scorer. The golden ball goes to the best player. I believe if France wins the tournament, Antoine Griezmann will actually win the golden ball. He's had a great tournament. And this is where you can't look at numbers and say, well, I think Mbappe has 5 goals and 2 assists. He's been the best player. Antoine Griezmann has actually been the best player for France.
And he's been playing out of position. He usually plays a more forward role for club. And in this France setup, he's playing kind of like the number 10, like the attacking midfielder role, and being the connector between Giroud, Dembele, and Mbappe. So he's playing a more facilitator role, and he's thriving in that.
Yeah. So the X factors for me is can Griezmann, if they can avoid fouls in bad areas, and Griezmann produces another great game, they can win. Do you have an X factor for Argentina outside of someone other than the great Messi?
I mentioned one with Alvarez. He's going to have to continue to score, because Alvarez and Messi have scored 9, I think, of their 12 goals. So they've been the majority of their offense. I think Enzo Fernandez is going to have a really good game in the midfield. France against England and Morocco had trouble in the midfield. They were frequently getting outrun and overrun through the middle. So I think Enzo Fernandez is going to have a really nice game. And somebody who hasn't been starting recently, but I think can have a big impact as an impact sub, is Angel Di Maria, because outside of Messi, he's their next best one-on-one, create a chance for somebody else. Early in the group stage, he was getting a lot of run, and he was one of their most dangerous attackers. So if he does not start, that's a weapon for Argentina to have off the bench if they're going to need a little something extra at the end. And with France, I think Tchouaméni is going to have another stellar game, because the French midfield has not been as strong the past 2 games. And if he brings it with that all-around energy, breaking up counterattacks and reigniting their own counterattack, I think that's going to be huge for Argentina, for France. So give me Tchouaméni with France, and Alvarez and Di Maria for Argentina.
All right. So before we give our official predictions and wrap it up, obviously this time next week, we'll be getting ready for the return of club football. Boxing Day, as they call it in England, which is December 26th, is the return. So we'll have a whole show on this, kind of the restart. But Joe, a couple of things. What are some things that you're looking at? Just a couple of things for the folks to keep an eye on with the restart.
The biggest matchup right off the bat coming out of the World Cup isn't even in the Premier League. It's in, I want to say it's the Carabao Cup. I'm pretty sure we could get the exact date because I know it's my squad. December 22nd. So Thursday before Christmas, we have Man City v Liverpool in the round of 16 in the Carabao Cup. Now, not the most prestigious competition in the world, not back to Premier League, not back to the Bundesliga and La Liga and all that. But anytime you see Man City on one side and Liverpool on the other, it's going to be must-see watch. And they recently had a little summit between the supporters clubs between Liverpool and Man City because there's been some not so good behavior on both sides. I will own that on my team's side. There have been a few fans.
It's been a little nasty on both.
Yeah, so they had a little summit this past week to try to clear up some of that and try to get the fans a little bit more in line with how people would like to see them behave. So I'm looking at that one. Another kind of selfish one in the same competition the day before, on December 21st. It's Manchester United sans Ronaldo for the first time in a year and a half against Burnley. And you know who is managing Burnley now in the championship? Is Captain Fantastic, my man's Vinny Company. So we'll see him matched up against Manchester United again. So I am very much as fun as I've had with the World Cup. I can't wait for club football to come back. I've been itching to watch my team again and to see what's going to happen with the Premier League race, especially now that your squad has taken a little bit of an injury hit with going to be out for the next 3 months. And shortly after we come back, within 2 weeks, we have the transfer window opening right up. And there's already a lot of talk about teams excited to spend money in January, and not just like 20 million here, 30 million there. They're talking about big names and big dollar amounts going around. So that should be very interesting to watch.
Yeah. I think the two things are to the transfer window. I think the two things I'm looking at is, does Jude Bellingham actually move? That's number one. I think there's always a guy who has a big World Cup, and not that he gets overrated, but he gets overpriced.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you look for that. And then I think it's just going to be interesting to see teams is who can kind of get restarted the quickest. So, I'm just kind of thinking about the rosters on both sides. There's not many Premier League players left on either side. Alvarez plays for Man City. France has a couple of guys, but so who gets restarted quicker? So with Arsenal, Man City obviously running pretty 1-2. But does Liverpool, who can kind of get themselves going coming out of the break?
Mm-hmm.
For what be a busy last 5.5 months. Like the Premier League calendar from December 26th to the end of May.
Jam-packed.
I think other than one international break has you almost playing twice a week, 2 or 3 times a week for the rest of the year.
If you're still in domestic or European competitions, your team is definitely playing at least 3 times probably a week in certain circumstances. So it's going to be a war of attrition at this point. And some teams have had their players go home early from the World Cup and gotten a chance to get a little bit of a break before they return to first team training. There's been some friendlies that have gone on already to kind of get the players back into game shape and game speed. Sadly for Chelsea, for my boy Zach, and the other Chelsea contingent in the group, Armando Broja went down with a really nasty ACL in the friendly. And it's like I was talking to Zach, it was just catch-22. You want to get back into fitness and game shape, and you don't want, but at the same time, you don't want these injuries to happen. So if you schedule them and somebody gets hurt, you get criticized. If you don't schedule them and your team comes out flat, then you did the wrong thing because your team wasn't ready. So it's just a crappy situation. So Man City has a friendly tomorrow, I think. So we'll see how much run some of the first team guys get that have either not participated, like Riyad Mahrez or the Norwegian Meat Shield, who's been raring to go. I can't wait to see him back out on the field. I so hope Norway makes it to the expanded World Cup in 4 years, because seeing him on that stage would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So, predictions. I've had a back and forth hard mind this whole tournament. The mind still says Argentina. I still think in my mind Argentina will win it. But I'm going to go with the heart. And I don't say heart. And Joe, this is any sport. There's always a guy. He's not the best player in the world, but you just like him. Mm-hmm. Just for whatever reason. And for me, that guy has always been the OG, my number 9, Olivier, who, by the way, with 4 goals, is in contention for the Golden Boot. Against better judgment, as I've said about France 1,000 times, I'm going to go France 2, Argentina 1. Olivier Giroud scores the winner. I'm not going to say he's going to score both goals. Olivier scores the winner. And then we're going to look back and say, Olivier Giroud won 2 World Cups, a Champions League, the Europa League. He won the league title. Well, like the guy who is maybe the least great player with an unbelievable resume. So France 2, Argentina 1.
My students have been talking to me all World Cup about who's going to win, and they are all surprisingly riding with France. So I've been giving them grief all week long that Argentina is going to win. Every time they look at me and see me, they start yelling France and Mbappe and all that jazz. And I've repeatedly told them that no, that is not going to be the case. I'm going to be sticking with my pre-World Cup pick. I'm going with Argentina still. Last time these two clubs matched up was last tournament in the round of 16. France won in a wild game, 4-3. I think that this one is going to be a little bit higher scoring affair. I'm going 3-2 Argentina, and Messi brings home the Golden Boot as well.
There you have it, folks. So we may try to get in one more show before the holiday break to kind of get maybe a World Cup recap and kind of put a real kickstart to this club season. But thank you for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed the tournament. Shout out to our man Diego. Send one up for Diego.
Huge Argentina fan. He's he sent us a little something. He sent us a little bit of a book. So I'm gonna let him post his thoughts in the group instead of reading this whole thing. But y'all can guess that he is Vamos Argentina all day long, and I hope that we get to see him on camera early next week.
This is if France loses, I will not be upset, because my man Diego, this is kind of why I've never really been super big on USA, but it's a whole other conversation we'll get into. Is I like for people that really want something to happen for them. And people in Argentina, Brazil, annoying as they are, England, Like, this is just what they live for. It's this.
Mm-hmm.
And so for Diego and Argentina fans, if you all win it, I will not begrudge you whatsoever. So there you have it. Stoppage Time Football Clubs. Subscribe to the YouTube, membership in the Facebook group, Sky Blue Joe, Chelsea Blue Zach.
Repping his Toledo jersey today for him. I got him.
Dreffin Toledo, our man Diego Maradona Lopez. Enjoy the World Cup final. Signing out.